Coal Secretary joins us from Ranchi to speak about all that's happened in the coal auctions and what's the way ahead. Good having you, Mr. Swarup. Thanks so much for joining in. You know, I follow you on Twitter, and I must say that I get the news before a lot of other sources would, because you're fairly active there. But what's your initial comment on the coal auctions? I read some of your tweets about how states would benefit, but what about the companies? How do you think the auctions have gone so far?
I think auctions have gone pretty well. It's been a good beginning, but there's a very long way to go. We've done only about 18 blocks so far. We are looking at, in all, 204 mines. The process has been established, the transparent process that we had put in place. That was quite a challenge, because if that works, then in future it also works. Of course, the pricing will be different as we go along, but fact of the matter is that the transparent process that we began with and we put in place is working.
But Mr. Swarup, would you say that so far so good? It's been a grand success. At least the numbers that have been trickling in looks like it's been a pretty successful venture so far.
Thank you. Thank you very much for saying that. I thought it would be better if you all say that. I would be saying, like, you know, baker calling a cake good. But I think those that have received it are calling it good. That's a good news.
You know, Mr. Swarup, there are also various cases filed against the coal block auction procedures. Some companies have challenged the fact that entities are not allowed to put in multiple bids. How are you dealing with these allegations?
You know, I don't treat them as allegations. The issue is that the stakes are very high, and almost anybody who's somebody in the country is involved in these coal auctions. So anyone who has a different point of view will air his views and probably will also go to the court. That's a right that he has. We have been contesting them, and by and large, we've got most of the judgments in our favor, and that's why the coal auctions have gone ahead.
Mr. Swarup, what's the way ahead now? I mean, just a follow-up from that question, you don't think any of these cases or etc. would have any bearings on the mines that have already been auctioned, right? Though that's a done deal for now.
You know, of the 204 blocks that we are dealing, it is only in 4 cases that the courts have said to put them on hold for a while. 2 of them belong to Schedule 2 and 2 to Schedule 3. So that doesn't really impact the coal auction process as a whole. Just to inform you, the auction for Schedule 3 mines, they commence from the 25th of February, just 2 days down the line.
Okay. Now coming in from the perspective of how the markets are treating these auctions, you know, when CESC put that first bid, the stock got duly punished because people believed it's bid very, very aggressively. Then people have come around and said that, hey, you know, companies will still make decent ROEs even on the bids that they've put in, even the power companies for that matter, leave alone the metal companies. As somebody who, not just wearing the coal secretary hat, but also a veteran of the coal sector, how do you think the bidding has been so far? And do you think that's the nature of the bids that will continue for the Schedule 3 as well?
First of all, I'd like to correct you. I'm not a veteran in coal. In fact, I'm still learning.
Let me put it in, you're an expert then.
Here. There's a lot to learn. No, I'm not even an expert. But let me tell you whatever I have learned so far. First, let me clarify that the initial auctions were likely to go bid high. But now that some demand has been met and more supply by way of coal blocks will come, I think bidding may not see those high levels. I could discern some desperation in some of the companies while they bid. We should not be expecting the same bids in future, because if we look at the coming few days, we are putting up a large number of blocks not only in remaining Schedule 3, but we'll continue to put these blocks on auction till we exhaust all the 204 blocks. Apart from those blocks that are going to be allotted, the rest of the blocks are going to be put in auction, and this process will continue till maybe March 2016. And so it's going to be it's not going to be the same way as it was in the first tranche of blocks that were put to auction. It's going to be different now on.
Right. So, Mr. Swarup, how many coal blocks would be open for auction in the next round?
If I remember the number correctly, it will be about anything between 10 to 15 blocks that will come for auction. You'll get the number announced maybe tomorrow.
Okay. Now, you mentioned about how the possibility of the next round of auctions having lower bidding as well. So that is one aspect. But do you believe that the bids may be lower, but the bidding will be aggressive in the sense that multiple entities could be bidding for the coal blocks as well? Because I believe the priced coal blocks are the ones that have gone off in the first couple of rounds. Now, maybe the slightly lesser desired blocks would be put up for auctions. Would bidding be aggressive, if not in pricing and in terms of the number of bids received?
You know, there are two reasons why I would assume that the bidding may not be that aggressive. One, of course, some of the demand has already been met. That is one reason. Second, the blocks that we are now putting in position for auction, these are blocks that are not fully developed. The blocks that were put to auction earlier were actually being mined. Coal was coming out of it. These blocks in Schedule 3 will have to be mined. Let me give you an overall picture of it. We are looking at, by 31st March, we are looking about 83 blocks in all. Out of these, half of them are being put to auction and approximately half of them will be allocated to government. So far, we've done only a few blocks. We've done only 18 blocks. Remaining, I think, 22, 23 blocks will be put to auction in the coming few days from the 25th onwards. So my hunch is that for those blocks, the bidding will not be aggressive on two counts that, as I mentioned. First, the aggressive ones or the people who are really desperate have got that. And the second, the blocks that we'll get now, it will take some time for them to develop it and mine from it.
Okay. Now, again, my question from the pricing perspective, how do you think power companies handle the way the bids have done? Because as I understand, and correct me if I'm wrong, the fixed charge for the power companies has not been capped as yet, and the views are divergent here as well. So how do you think that part of the die rolls out?
You know, let me tell one thing very clearly, which I have been telling in the past also. The whole idea of reverse auction was to bring the tariffs down. Now, if we allow the cost to be included therein, the tariff will not come down. So we are very clear in our mind that the tariffs have to come down. And we had told the companies well in advance, that is how we are panning out. Now, if that doesn't happen, the purpose of reverse auction will fail. So we are in consultation with Power Ministry, and we'll see to it that it does impact tariffs in the reverse direction rather than taking it up. Imagine a scenario, if we were allowed a pass-through of all this, then there was no point in bidding it, you know. You bid higher and you pass it on to the consumer. Why do you, I mean, it is only when you put a lid on that it makes a sense. Otherwise, all the bidding that you do, you pass it on to the consumer, and there's no point in, because that money actually doesn't come to the government, so to say.
So, Mr. Swarup, update us on what's the plan chalked out for Coal India expansion now.
Coal India board passed a resolution in an attempt to ramp up the production from this year's probably 500 million tons to 1 billion ton in the next 5 years. And mind you, this is not a target fixed from the top. It's a bottoms-up sort of a targeting. Each mine plan has been made, and they've worked out what it takes to ramp up the production in each of these mines, as well as to add some more mines to it. And the idea here is to identify clearly what are the issues that will, you know, prevent them from going in the direction that they want to do. For example, they've looked at the technology part, they've looked at the human resource part, and most importantly, they've looked at the evacuation part. And it is in that context, in principle, decision has been taken to set up joint ventures in each of the critical states like Odisha, Chhattisgarh. I'm sitting here in Jharkhand, and one of the reasons why I've come all this distance is to discuss with the state government to see if a JV could be formed. And the idea is to hive off these projects to these JVs so that they can be executed in time. Until we have this whole issue of evacuation sorted out, there's no point in producing more coal. And this has been very clearly recognized by Coal India board, and I'm glad they've done it. And if you look at the plan that they've made, it's an extremely detailed plan, mine-wise, identifying issues relating to land acquisition, identifying issues relating to environment, forest, identifying issues relating to evacuation, so on and so forth.
So, you know, that brings me to the very point that you started off the discussion with, that there is a huge incentive given out to state governments as a result. There's a windfall gain essentially that has come into state governments as a result of these auctions as well. Do you think that now faster clearances, land acquisition hurdles being cleared could only facilitate better mining in the years to come, and that would reduce two things: one, the power tariffs, and two, the power deficits that exist in a country like India?
Absolutely, you've hit the nail on the head. You know, it's a two-way traffic. We in central government has demonstrated to the state governments that we are extremely concerned about the value that should go to the state governments. For your information, when the auctions closed yesterday, the total value in terms of e-auction is about 1,09,000 crore. And you add to it another 12,500 crores of royalty. It's an amazing amount that is going to the state governments. Some of the state governments will get around 40,000 crores in the next 30 years. And more will come as more get auctioned. So I think we have conveyed to the state government that we are extremely concerned about their finances, and this value gets transferred to the state governments without central government retaining anything. And that's created an amazing environment. Yesterday I met the Chief Minister of Jharkhand. He was so happy with the way things are moving. And he promised that he is going to personally look into these issues that are inhibiting, fast progress in these projects. Nothing could be better than that. So what has actually happened is, it has created an environment of mutual trust, of mutual help, and that I think will create a win-win situation for everybody. So coal auctions, whereas have been good in themselves in establishing a transparent process, it has managed to get the states on board. And as you absolutely correctly said, I'm quite sure that state governments will play ball, they will be on board, and we will jointly trying to find solutions to the problems that are there in the states.
You use the word environment, Mr. Swarup, and that really reminds me about the timelines for environment and other statutory approvals. Do you assure a smooth functioning over there as well?
Not only assure you, we are quite confident that we should be able to move very fast. We've set up an institutional framework. Going by my experience in the project monitoring group, we've set up a similar portal in Coal Ministry called the Coal Project Monitoring Portal, wherein all the issues are being listed there and they are taken up periodically. In fact, I have assured the private sector also that if they have issues relating to environment clearance, they can use that portal to, house those problems, and they can be seen and monitored periodically. And I will be traveling regularly to the states, sit with state chief secretaries, discuss with state chief ministers. The idea is to get things moving, and what gives us hope is what has moved so far. And as I said in the beginning, it's just a beginning. But the beginning has given us the confidence that we can actually move ahead and sort out many more problems.
Well, begun is half done, Mr. Swarup. That's all we can say. Good chatting with you. Thanks so much for taking time out and speaking with us today at ET Now.
Find us on Facebook at facebook.com/ETNow, and don't forget to click the like button. You can also follow us on Twitter at ETNowLive. To stay updated with all our programming, hit the subscribe button on our YouTube channel by logging on to youtube.com/user/ETNow.